Hey, what's up guys? Today I want to talk about the new artifacts that are coming in patch 2.6 that were announced during the last live stream. I've been getting a ton of questions regarding these two new artifact sets, so I want to go in detail as to who can use them, how good they are overall, and how big of a damage increase they will be to certain characters like Xiao, who's finally getting an artifact set. So getting right into it, let's talk about the new artifact sets and what they do before getting into more details. The first artifact set, Vermillion Hereafter, is an artifact set that seemingly just design-wise and when you read the effect, was made for Xiao. The 2-piece set will give you 18% attack, which is nice and makes it a universal 2-piece, but then the 4-piece is where things get interesting. This 4-piece set will increase your attack by 8% for 16 seconds after you use an elemental burst, and then will also give you more attack when your HP decreases. In fact, when you lose HP, you'll gain 10% attack once every 0.8 seconds, and it can stack up to 4 times. What this means is that when you add it all up, if you lose HP 4 times, you will gain 40% attack plus another 8% from initially using your burst, on top of the 18% you gain from the 2-piece. This artifact set will therefore give you a total of 66% attack if you can fully proc its effect. While this can be a difficult task for many characters to get hit so many times in order to gain a bunch of attack percent, it is one that happens naturally for the character that I believe it was designed for, which is Xiao. Xiao is a character that, I'm sure you know, loses HP passively throughout his burst, on top of also giving him a ton of damage percent from its effect. In fact, because you're gaining so much damage percent on Xiao, he's someone that values attack very highly. Attack percent is a stat that Xiao always really wants because you're gaining so much damage percent from other sources like your burst and like your goblet that you start hitting diminishing returns, basically meaning that the more you get, the less it matters. Because of that, a lot of Xiao players are now running 2-piece Gladiator and 2-piece Reminiscence as Xiao's best in slot. And while there are advantages to running and mix and matching 2-piece sets based on your better substats, having a new best in slot 4-piece is something that is quite nice. And so this new 4-piece artifact set is undoubtedly Xiao's best in slot because it just gives you more attack. Instead of gaining 36% from Glad and Reminiscence, you will gain a total of 66% from the new artifact set. That being said, how big of a DPS increase is this? How much will it actually increase your Xiao's DPS? Now, while the answer is obviously it depends, I will go into more detail as to exactly how much you're gaining and whether or not it's worth farming for your Xiao. Now, before I show you exactly how big of a DPS increase it can be, I do want to say that it highly depends on your substats. The advantages of having a 2 Reminiscence 2 Glad is that they're usually sets that you can basically farm passively. You can get Glad from either strong boxes or farming bosses, and you can get the 2-piece Reminiscence from just doing the emblem domain that many other characters need. On top of that, there's other 2-pieces that Xiao can use, like the Verdescent Venerer that's very good, on top of just substats. And actually, I want to emphasize that this is a big thing, since a lot of Xiao mains have already geared their Xiao, and me, for example, while I will farm this new set to get a new, like, perfect Xiao, quote unquote, the odds of me finding better artifacts than the ones that are already on my Xiao are very slim. However, on top of just that though, the increase in attack percent is more or less relevant depending on the team you're running and what buffs you're giving your Xiao. For example, if you pair this character with a Bennett who gives you a ton of attack percent, as well as the Noblesse Oblige set and maybe a Thrilling Tales user, then going from 36% attack to 66 is no longer as big of an increase, although it is still quite relevant. I will say in defense of this set that for a hyper carry like Xiao, who likes attack and who is the main source of your team's damage, where basically most of your supports tend to just buff this character or do a bit of passive damage, every bit of DPS increase you can give to your Xiao will be significant. Now, with that said, I want to get to probably what you guys have been waiting for. How big of a DPS increase is it? Well, as always, the answer depends on your substats, weapons, and buffs, but it is around 10% or exactly ranging from 5 to 10%. I'll put some calcs on screen now from Xiao mains that sort of explain a bit more in detail what I mean by this, but it is around a 10% DPS increase, although, as I said, it can be a bit less if you're just stacking attack percent from a lot of external buffs. Now, while this may not seem like much, and as I said, if you already have amazing Gladiator pieces like 2-piece Glad, 2-piece Verdescent, or Reminiscence, it might not be worth farming. 10% DPS increase to your hyper carry can be something that is considerable, and it is mainly considerable if you don't already have an artifact set, if you're trying to build up a new character, or if you also need the other set that this comes with. The other set that I'll cover very shortly looks like it will be needed on potentially Ayato and some current existing characters that can use it, to where if you want to farm for 2 characters at once and you need the other set, it can gain more value. And so I do clearly have mixed feelings about this set, but I do think it's nice for future Xiao mains and people that want to just farm this domain for whatever reason without it being a necessary set. Lastly, I want to say that while this first artifact set is pretty niche and I only recommend it for Xiao unless you want to just take damage on another character to gain attack percent, and if that ever becomes the meta, I'll add a pinned comment. The second artifact set, Echoes of an Offering, is definitely more flexible. Before I get into even the 4-piece, I do want to say that the 2-piece of this set is the same as the other set, giving you 18% attack. This therefore makes it a universal 2-piece set like Gladiator or Shimenawa's that you can use on many characters. Because of that, farming these domains, while yes, the sets are relatively niche, at least getting good 2-pieces from it can be a nice addition to your account, since many characters can use this 2-piece. Now, where things get interesting is the 4-piece set that increases your normal attack damage while you are normal attacking. The way this works is actually a random chance, which is quite annoying but isn't as bad as it seems in my opinion. In fact, when your normal attacks hit an opponent, there will be a 36% chance that it triggers an effect called Valley Right, which will increase your normal attack damage by 70% of your attack. This effect is dispelled immediately or 0.05 seconds after you deal damage with a normal attack, and if your normal attack fails to trigger Valley Right, so if it does not proc the buff, the odds of it triggering the next time will increase by 20%. The trigger can occur every 0.2 seconds, which means you can just spam it and keep buffing your normal attacks. Now, while there are a bunch of percentages here, so a lot of people are confused as to how good it is, let me break it down in a bit of a more simple way. First thing I want to say is that the 20% increase to the 36% chance makes it to where you can proc the buff pretty consistently. It'll go from 36% chance on the first hit to 56, 76, and so on. So on average throughout a fight, it will proc about half the time, around 50%. And so if it increases your normal attack damage by 70% of attack, roughly 50% of your hits, then that's the equivalent of increasing your normal attack damage by 35% of your attack on average. What this means is that this set is good for normal attack characters, but its exact strength is something that we need to test and will also depend on your RNG. If you get really lucky or really unlucky, it can increase or decrease your damage, and also the randomness can sort of be weird for which hits you're buffing. If you're buffing a hit that vaporizes, it'll be really huge, whereas if you buff your normal attack that doesn't vaporize on a Pyro or Hydro character, but then buff your smaller hit or your less impactful normal attack, then it won't be as efficient. Granted, while in the Abyss you can just reset if you get unlucky, adding another layer of randomness isn't the greatest thing, although overall it is still a nice set effect. And so with that said, who is this set actually good on? Well, if it wasn't clear already, this is clearly a set that was made for auto-attacking characters. I do want to say it's probably a set made for Ayato specifically, and while we don't know exactly how he works, we did see his kit in the live stream and it looks like he's going to be normal attacking, but obviously he's not out yet so I can't test it, although I do speculate that this will be a good set for Ayato. Other than just him though, who else will this be good for? Characters that come to mind and that I will elaborate on in more detail are Yoimiya, who can spam normal attacks, Razor, who also spams normal attacks, Child, who has a bit more mixed damage but does also a lot of normal attacks to where it's actually quite valuable on him and better than I initially thought, and some other characters that I also want to talk about. First of all, for Yoimiya, this new set can be good for her. I've had to re-record this section a lot because it's kind of weird to explain, but basically, the new set can be similar in DPS to her current existing best in slots. While it is a bit less consistent for Vaporize, and while the 4-piece Reminiscence set has been calced to be better, 4 Reminiscence is kind of weird to use as it drains your energy, and it's something that I personally hate using. Because of that, having a new set that's more casual friendly, and that will just buff your damage when you normal attack passively without having you to think, makes it a nice alternative. And when you think of Yoimiya's general sets, like the 2-piece Crimson Witch with 2-piece Glad, when you mix and match 2 pieces, which is a very good alternative for Yoimiya, the new set will give you more damage overall, because here you gain 18% attack with 15 power damage bonus, whereas with the new set you also gain that 18% attack, but you're also gaining that normal attack damage over this 15% power damage bonus. Overall, it is similar in strength to her existing sets, but I personally really like it because, as I said, it's casual friendly and can be similar in strength to her best in slots. Do keep in mind though that since this is a new set and a new domain, it may not be worth your resin for Yoimiya, especially if you're only farming the domain for her, as farming Reminiscence set is much more efficient because it comes with Emblem, and if you already have that set on Yoimiya, there's no real reason to change. And in order to move on and keep this video like pretty short but also cover everything, if you want more resources on Yoimiya specifically or other characters I talk about in this video, I will link some more detailed resources in the description down below. Moving on, for the next character I want to talk about, it's actually Child. Now with Child, his damage is a bit more mixed than you might think, because while yes, he normal attacks a lot, so normal attack damage is important, he also does a lot of charge attacks in his optimal combo and also gets a lot of damage from his burst and from Riptide. Because of that, his damage is mixed, so only buffing his normal attacks isn't the biggest deal, but it is still relevant. However, what the set also does is give you attack percent. Because of that, the 2-piece set giving you 18% attack and the 4-piece set increasing your normal attack damage pretty significantly actually makes this set better than you might think on Child. While its exact strength depends on the weapon you're running, it can actually be one of Child's best sets, and while I would still typically go the 4-piece Heart of Depth as your best in slot, as this generally gives you a bit more damage overall, the new artifact set is not that far behind and is definitely a viable option. Increasing your Child's normal attack damage while also giving you 18% attack, which which even now is just a viable 2-piece to run on Child, as it buffs literally every part of your kit, makes it therefore a good set. Moving on for some other characters I want to talk about, let's start by talking about Razor. This new set, especially with good substats, can be very good for him, as most of his damage comes from his normal attacks. And while Razor is someone who does more mixed damage at high investment, like he is a physical carry but also does a lot of electro damage with constellations and with high talent investment from just his wolf and his skill, this set will only buff your normal attacks. That being said, his existing go-to set, the Pale Flame, also mainly increases your normal attacks, giving you 50% physical damage but also some attack percent, whereas this set gives you attack percent but also some normal attack damage. It is therefore another viable option that can be ran if you don't have Pale Flame or if you get good substats of it. For other characters, a lot of people have been asking me about this set in Eula, and I've heard other people talk about this set for Eula, but personally it's not my favorite. While yes, it will buff your normal attacks and give you some attack percent, so sure, a lot of Eula's damage comes from her burst. Her damage isn't all from her normal attacks, and you gain around 50% of your damage from your burst, to where it's very important to buff that part of your kit as well. When Eula already has good artifact sets like the 4-piece Pale Flame, if you can maintain the uptime, and you should be able to, and if not, you can just run like 2 Pale Flame, 2 Bloodstained, this new artifact set won't be as good, as it buffs your normal attacks primarily. Therefore, I'm still an advocate for those physical sets, more so than this new one for Eula. Lastly, for normal attackers in general, like I saw people talk about physical official and stuff, yeah, it's a normal attack set, obviously it'll be viable for them, although it's not as much of a meta build. Overall though, with the exception of me really liking it for Yoimiya and probably Ayato, it is more so a viable alternative for a lot of other characters. While it is still niche, I say a lot of other characters, but it is still a pretty niche option. The fact that it can be used as an alternative is nice if you happen to farm it or go for the other artifact set. Overall though, to give you guys my more, personal opinions on these sets, I do really think it's mainly worth farming if you either want both or are trying to get artifacts for characters that you don't already have built. While I said that they're viable alternatives many times already, if you already have a good like Pale Flame set on a physical carry or any set on Yoimiya, like 2 Crimson Witch, 2 Glad, or 4 Reminiscence, it might not be worth for you to farm a new artifact set just for them. While we don't know exactly how Ayato is going to work yet, if this is his best in slot, which I have reason to believe it might be, then it can be worth farming for you unless you already have a good alternative set. If Ayato is someone who, for example, can also run the 4-piece Heart of Depth set, then is it really worth for you farming a brand new artifact set just for a little bit of DPS increase if it is one? That is up to you to decide and how much you're willing to spend your resin. Personally, I think that there's more resin efficient domains like the Reminiscence emblem one, which is why I still advocate for like going to Reminiscence on Xiao just passively by farming emblem. That being said, this new set being best slot on him is really nice for Xiao mains that don't have a good set for him yet, or for people that want to optimize their Xiao, push him to the limit like me. And so those are my thoughts overall. A bit more of a disorganized video because I'm just talking about what I think, and through the math and calcs we've done, my sort of understanding of how good these sets are. Overall, that about wraps it up. I'm sorry if this video was a bit delayed. I know I could have released this earlier, but I was very busy with things. I really hope it helped you decide whether or not you want to farm for it. Personally, I will be spamming this domain for months, probably on my stream, because I just want to make my Xiao as good as he can be. I will make another video when I finally get perfect artifacts for him, just to show you guys, I guess, the DPS increase from current perfect Xiao to future perfect Xiao. With that said, I really hope you enjoyed this video. As always, if there's anything I want to add, as this artifact set is very new and not even out yet, it will be in a pinned comment, so be sure to check that and let me know what future content you guys want to see. With that said, I'm going to end this here though, to keep this video hopefully short, as I wanted this to be a shorter one, and because I want to go stream live on Twitch. So feel free to come stop by and say hi. And with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.